Okay. Well, uh, Lance, thank you for joining us to this interview. It's an honor for us to have you here with us. And well, let's go right to the questions.
Okay, thank you.
Well, for this question, how did you start your career on the wrestling?
I was living in Austin, Texas. I was working in a nightclub, a dance club, and I was always a fan of professional wrestling. But in high school and university time, I played American football. After I stopped playing football, the owner of the nightclub that I worked at introduced me to a gentleman in Austin, Texas, who owned a independent wrestling company called the Southwest Wrestling Federation. And I did a one-day tryout. Didn't know how bad pro wrestling actually hurt, but he made it very affordable for me because I was a poor kid in college and university time. And that was kind of how I got my start, was in Austin, Texas, the Southwest, and just had for understanding what wrestling was all about. But I am a professional, and this was my first real opportunity to become an actual professional wrestler.
What's your exposure you? I
Me, my was Sting was the guy that, when I was watching wrestling and first made me want to wrestle and be a fan to maybe become a professional wrestler. Sting was the guy I really liked watching. Bill did his version of Sting, the black and white face paint and the longer hair that I saw him. I didn't really see his early, blonde hair surfer style Sting. I only saw the Crow style Sting, but that was when I was becoming a fan, and so he was the guy that I started watching and watching WCW, and I did not even watch much of WWF back then, only WCW, and so I was a real big WCW fan and fan.
Oh, I'm also a huge fan of Sting. I love the Crow, the movie.
Yeah.
Is it a dream match to be Sting?
Oh yeah, of course. Everybody, I need to remember the were at TNA. I'm never open point TNA. It was just no more tag like that. Unfortunately, to maybe become a professional wrestler, Sting was the guy that I really liked watching, and it wasn't until he did his Crow version of Sting, the black and white face paint and the longer hair, that I saw him. I didn't really see his early, blonde hair surfer style Sting. I only saw the Crow style Sting, but that was when I was becoming a fan, and so he was the guy that I started watching and watching WCW, and I did not even watch much of WWF back then, only WCW, and so I was a real big WCW fan and Sting fan.
Oh, I'm also a huge fan of Sting. I love the Crow, the movie.
Yeah.
Is it a dream match to be with Sting in a ring or something like that?
Oh yeah, of course, man. I think everybody, has an idol in the business and would love an opportunity to wrestle with them in the ring. And, he and I were at TNA at the same time, but, it never happened. I was hoping at some point, in some way that I would get to have a match against him, and whether it was just me and him or a tag match or something like that. But unfortunately, my time at TNA ended before that ever happened.
It will be great to just be part with a fight with Sting.
Oh yeah, I was actually. He did a small movie about his life when I first started with TNA back in 2004, and I got to be in the movie, and I got to hit him with the chair and stuff like that. So that was the closest I ever had to having a match with Sting back then, and that was, for me as a fan, that was great, But he also was a teacher, a mentor for me in wrestling. He helped me out many times at TNA and offered me many different pieces of advice and talked to me on the phone about, when I was transitioning to WWE and stuff like that. So he was a very good person along with being a wrestler. And so it was really cool for me as a fan of his before I was even wrestling to work with him in the same company and then have the opportunity to receive advice from him and things like that.
How it was when you came to TNA? How did you feel?
It was great. In 2004 is when I started at TNA, and it was a new company, a company that was trying to figure out, what kind of company it wanted to be and how far it was going to go and how it was going to grow. So it was a fun time for young wrestlers who were trying to make a name for themselves in the business of professional wrestling. And I had not had any opportunities with WWE before that, only doing independence in Texas. So for me, it was really exciting because it was a new company and I was still a young talent, and it was a really cool place to start because I got to be a part of a lot of TNA firsts. When they had just the Wednesday night pay-per-view, and then they were on TV in the U.S. For the first time, and then the first regular 3-hour pay-per-views that they did, and I got to be a part of all the first things that TNA was really doing. So it was a lot of fun for me and the company, I think, as in a good, exciting time.
And what is your favorite moment or your more memorable in TNA?
Man, I had I had a lot, very many.
But
I
more memorables.
Yeah, I was there from 2004 to 2009. I had many very big matches. One of my best friends in life now is Monty Brown, so I got to fight him a few different times on different pay-per-views. But I always tell the story of my match against Abyss in 2005. It was for the pay-per-view called Sacrifice. He and I had a singles match, and it was two very big men doing things that most people don't expect to see big men doing. And, I had a really good match with him, always did, but this was in front of, one of our better audiences, to date. And a lot of really cool moments. I did a springboard Van Terminator in that match, which was something I'd never attempted before. And it happened like it was supposed to. So it was amazing.
It is hard to do all the dives in it. Are you scared of it when you are doing that?
Scared a little maybe, but not of getting hurt or anything, but just making a mistake. You're always wanting to give the best performance you can every time, always getting better with every show and every match. And you try big things. You either have a big reward or you have a big fail. And luckily this time it was a big reward. And it was amazing. So, but if you don't try big things, you never get big opportunities. And so, I was willing to be scared and try something new and try something big. And luckily it happened very good. And it was a big moment, and forever I'll remember it. And I think anybody that watched it at that time will remember it as well.
I know that you were in Texas yesterday and doing a seminar. How do you feel that all the possible stars of your state, and how do you see the scene in wrestling in Texas?
The Texas wrestling scene is very good right now. There are some very good companies around the state. One of the best companies that I work with, and right now, because I'm injured, I can't wrestle, I'm doing commentary. It's for a company called Wrestle Circus, and in their show next Saturday on the 27th will be on internet pay-per-view. So I will be doing commentary for them again. And they're a company that's very young. They only started in October of last year, but they have had some very big shows with a lot of good wrestlers. This one's actually called Lucha Carnival, so they're using a lot of Lucha stars and AAA stars and stuff for this one. There's other companies, Main Event Pro Wrestling, Inspire Pro Wrestling, RCW down in San Antonio, Texas. So many companies that have a lot of good wrestlers. The seminar I did yesterday was a lot of fun because I've had a lot of big opportunities in my career working TNA, WWE for the last 6 years in Japan with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I've been able to learn from a lot of very good wrestlers from both the past of professional wrestling to the modern day and some of the young guys who are going to be big stars in the future. So for me, it was a lot of fun being able to share some knowledge with some of the Texas independent wrestlers that are trying to become something special in this business. There's so many good wrestlers. It's hard to name anybody in particular, but it's really cool to see. ACH is a big name that's starting to come out of Texas. Keith Lee, is another name he wrestles with Evolve now, and he's coming out of Texas. Sammy Guevara, there's Andy Dalton. There's so many guys that I could say names that are just really, really, really good wrestlers that are just waiting for that next big step in the business.
Now my friend is going to another question. They can prepare.
Well, Lance, tell me, after you were in TNA, you had your first experience in All Japan. What can you say about that time of your career in your first time in Japan?
Yes, actually, All Japan was not my first time in Japan. I'd already worked for an independent company in Japan since 2007. A few times I'd been to Japan, but they were just very small shows, and it was just one or two shows. All Japan was my first opportunity working with a bigger company in Japan, and that was a really cool experience because it was my first long trip in Japan. Every other time before was only 2, 3, 4 days at the most, and this one was more than 2 weeks. So, it was really fun, new experience for me. And again, Minoru Suzuki, who's the leader of the group that I'm a part of now, was the Triple Crown champion at the time for All Japan Pro Wrestling. Satoshi Kojima was there at All Japan at the time, and he's very famous in Japan. Triple Crown champion, IWGP champion, many times over a tag team champion with Tenzan. So he was a part of All Japan at that time as well. And, it was just a very cool experience getting to learn new Japanese wrestling and to be able to absorb more of the culture because, again, I had been there before, but only short times. And I was still with TNA at the time, so this was in between doing TNA stuff. But this was right before my end of times with TNA before I went to WWE.
So tell me, is there a big difference between the Japanese wrestling and the American wrestling? Is there any big difference you can say?
I think today in 2017, it's getting much more close because more people are watching Japanese wrestling. New Japan has their own, like WWE Network, they have their own network called New Japan World, so more people get to watch for Japanese wrestling. So now more people are wrestling like, strong style pro wrestling. And that is the biggest difference if you want to look at traditional professional wrestling. Japanese wrestling is considered strong style pro wrestling, where they are more concerned about the fight of the match and making it look more real and more like a traditional fight. And whereas American professional wrestling is more around being entertainment with characters and things like that. But if you watch New Japan Pro Wrestling now, New Japan has adopted many American wrestling traits where they're taking more characters and more personalities and more stories and adding it into their strong style pro wrestling. And American wrestling is now taking more of the strong style pro wrestling and adding it into their matches and how they fight and how they strike each other. So it's now becoming more of a mixture of the two different styles, I think, than ever before in the history of professional wrestling. But yes, Japanese wrestling is very much more strong style about the fight, and American style seems to be more about the story and the entertainment.
Okay, so talking about Japan, you had some problems with the language when you went to Japan for the first time, or you have some some knowledge about the language?
No, the first time going, I know nothing about Japanese, only like arigato because it's in some songs. But it's a very good culture, and I want to learn, so I always ask questions. I always ask words or how to say different things. And now my Japanese is okay, but still it's very difficult because it's a very different language than anything that's English. So it's fun learning, but it's very difficult even today after 6 years in Japan.
Okay.
What's your opinion about the strong style and the kind of wrestling that is stiff? Talking about that, the thing with Shibata, the
Hmm.
headbutts. What's
Yeah.
your opinion?
I am a very strong style wrestler, especially for American, I guess. My style is stiff, but it is safe. Um, and Shibata is a very good wrestler, but he was a fighter also. Before he first started with professional wrestling, but then he stopped professional wrestling so he could become a fighter, mixed martial arts fighter. So now he comes back to professional wrestling, and people know him more as a fighter than they do as a professional wrestler. So he was really trying to present himself as more of a true, original, strong style wrestler, and then he was choosing to do the headbutts. And I think, unfortunately, the human body can only take so much. And he was doing the headbutts, and people always good reaction from it, but he did it too many times, and we all want to think we are Superman, but we are, eventually, sooner or later, your body tells you no. And unfortunately for him, it was a very scary situation with, his brain swelling and them having to do surgery and stuff. And I think it's okay to be stiff, but stiff in a safe way. If you're choosing to be dangerous stiff, whether it's the chance of hurting other guys or hurting yourself, I think that needs to change. And unfortunately for Shibata, he may or may never wrestle again. But if he does wrestle again, I think he will have to change his style to not hurt himself more than anything.
The more safe one.
Yeah, more safe, even more for himself than for other guys, because he doesn't hurt other guys as much, but his headbutts hurt him.
Mm.
Well, talking about the New Japan, we see a lot of people like Misawa, like Kawada, Kobashi.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically legends on their business. Is there any wrestler in this time that you think it could be futurely wrestling legend like those one?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think I really think that Tanahashi will be that same level. When Tanahashi is done, finished wrestling, I think he will be just like Kobayashi, like Chono, like any of those wrestling legends before him. He is this modern day future legend. I think Okada, many, many, many years from now, because he is still a very young man,
Yeah.
he will be a legend, especially Japanese wrestling. But I think now, with how New Japan Pro Wrestling is going to start going more into the world, Okada will be bigger name in all of the world. Like I said, Tanahashi, I think, is big name now, and he will have big name. This is early times of New Japan's going across the world. But Okada, if he stays healthy and no problems, he has a long future. And as New Japan gets more and more big and goes to more in the U.S., more over in Europe, more down in Mexico, because they have a very good, strong relationship with CMLL, he will become more of a worldwide legend in the business of professional wrestling.
So tell me, just you had a lot of time in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so,
Mm-hmm.
and you had a lot of good matches, and one of those, or one we can highlight, it's the one you had with Shinsuke Nakamura.
Mm-hmm.
So
Charles
tell
versus
me,
Elite Squad.
well, tell me your thoughts about that match with that, because
Wait,
we're not it's a very important one for your career.
which match? I had a couple matches. G1 match or title match?
Did you want
I
one?
think the G1.
The G1? Yeah, the G1 was, and the G1 match was one of my first matches with him and in Japan. So, it was a very good match. And, he is very, very good. And there's the reason, now he's in WWE, because he is a good mixture of Japanese strong style and American entertainment style, because he's very entertaining as a person and his personality, but his ability to step inside the ring and have a very strong match is what makes him a good mix of both of those. And my match with him at the G1 again was very early in my New Japan Pro Wrestling career, and I did not understand how good he was then. but now I truly do understand because I had matches with him in that G1. I had an Intercontinental Championship match against him. I also had a match in the New Japan Cup against him as well. So, and then other tag matches at different times. So that I had a lot of opportunities to have matches with Shinsuke. So it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot about Japanese strong style wrestling from both wrestling against him and watching him fight.
Yeah, so talking about that, can you see in a near future the New Japan Pro Wrestling competing face to face with WWE, talking about the quality of the wrestlers and the the fact that we maybe don't watch a lot of New Japan Pro Wrestling until now? How you say they got their own network. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you see New Japan with WWE in a near future? You think New Japan could be the new top company on this business?
I think New Japan has this opportunity. I think it will be very difficult to become the number one company because Vince McMahon and WWE has so much money and they already have so much TV time. WWE's network is very established right now and everybody watches all over the world. You know, New Japan Pro Wrestling is just starting to expand to U.S. market, to European market. Again, New Japan World is not just now having English translation, so people in America, if they want to purchase, they can. They're adding more English commentary so that English-speaking people can listen. They will have to expand on that. WWE does a very good job. They have commentary for almost every language that holds the WWE network. Every time you watch a pay-per-view, they show all the different commentators from all the different places in the world. So whether you speak English or Japanese or Spanish or French or Russian or any other language, they have commentary. So it makes it more easy for wrestling fans around the world to watch WWE and understand who the fighters are and what the story is and everything involved. Right now, New Japan is just starting this adventure, and the more they add to the New Japan world and as they branch out and become more, I think they will become bigger competition to WWE, but I think it will be a very long time for them to become, the same competition as WWE.
And how did you knew that WWE wanted you? And how did you feel the first time you knew it?
I'm sorry, ask that again, please.
How it was when you knew that the WWE wanted you, and
Oh,
how
okay.
did you feel?
It was a very exciting time. I had been with TNA for 5 years before. I wanted to try to go to WWE, but I did not know if WWE would want me. And then when I was offered the job at WWE in 2009, it was very exciting because it was, the biggest company in the world, and it was a new opportunity. I was asked to go to Florida and be a part of their Florida Championship Wrestling first, but I was okay with this because it gave me opportunity to learn and understand how WWE does business. I hoped it would have been a better time in WWE, but I enjoyed my 2 years. I had opportunity to wrestle at WrestleMania, which not a lot of guys get to do, so that was amazing. And then I made a lot of good friends in my time in WWE.
What is your more memorable moment in WWE?
WrestleMania.
WrestleMania.
It was WrestleMania in Phoenix, Arizona. I think WrestleMania 27. And it was only for the pre-show. It was Battle Royal, but I still had opportunity to put my wrestling gear on and go out and do wrestling in front of almost 70,000 people inside of a major American football stadium. So just amazing. So that was my most memorable moment in WWE.
Did you feel frustrated for the treat that you have in there?
Did I feel frustrated about my time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, Not frustrated. Just I wanted more. And some guys have more opportunities and have more chance and more time to find who they want to be, who they need to be for WWE. And I don't feel like I was given enough time. It was a very short time in WWE. My contract was only 2 years. I was only on television maybe 1 year, like 3, 4 months ECW, and then the other time on SmackDown. So not frustrated, but definitely maybe a little disappointed that I did not accomplish more.
Mm. Then, when you left the WWE,
Hmm.
you had a time in the Indies.
Hmm.
Um, you won the Texas NWA World Heavyweight Championship. How it was for you to be again on the big leagues?
Well, I
And
mean, leaving WWE, I did not know what my future in professional wrestling would be. I returned to Texas, and like you said, I had the opportunity to be Texas heavyweight champion. But Texas heavyweight champion is good championship, but it's still a very small championship. And I wanted more, maybe with NWA World Championship, and this was 2011. But then very soon after my time in WWE and returning to Texas, I started with New Japan in June of 2011. So it was just very short time of only Texas independence, and then I had my first opportunity with New Japan in June of 2011.
when you started the New Japan Pro Wrestling tour in USA,
Hmm.
and you were recruited by Suzuki,
Hmm.
uh, how it was for you that time?
Uh, Very exciting. My whole career in Japan has had Suzuki-san involved in it. In 2007, my first match on a small independent Japanese show, I had a tag match fighting against Suzuki. When I went to All Japan in 2009, he was Triple Crown champion for All Japan. And then now going to New Japan in 2011, it was the beginning of Suzuki Gun, his group, and I was the first foreigner, first gaijin to be a part of the group. So I was like original member of Suzuki Gun. So it was very exciting for me to be a part of Suzuki Gun, to be starting with New Japan, and it seemed like it was very bright future for me with New Japan, and that was 2011, so 6 years ago.
It was like a new beginning to be with Suzuki Gun for your
Yeah.
career.
Hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, my best time in professional wrestling has been in Japan. I say many times that if I go to Japan before WWE, I think I would have a better career with WWE. But it is after WWE, and I'm okay with this. Again, it's been the best part of my career. I've had the most fun wrestling in Japan. I've discovered who I need to be in professional wrestling, and so if my career ends and I only finish in Japan, I will be very happy and very proud of the accomplishments I made.
Yeah. Are you open to a new run on WWE, or you're more to becoming more great in New Japan?
For me, right now, I'm focused on returning to wrestling because again, I'm recovering from back surgery.
Yeah.
I hope that I can return to New Japan Pro Wrestling, and I hope I can accomplish many more things with New Japan Pro Wrestling. But this is business of professional wrestling. You never say never. So if New Japan doesn't make new contract, and if WWE said here we have contract, you never know. I maybe go back, but right now, I'm very happy with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and that is my focus is to return to New Japan Pro Wrestling and become an even bigger star with New Japan.
Um, what is your opinion about your partners of Suzuki Gun?
Very funny guys, very good guys. very different personalities. Minoru Suzuki, who is in the history of professional wrestling and real fighting, traditional mixed martial arts fighting, is very strong on both sides. And he's been in professional wrestling over 25 years. He's a very good educator. He teaches me a lot. Taka Michinoku, everybody knows he was first WWF light heavyweight champion back in the day, and now he's Suzuki Gun, and he owns Kaintai Dojo in Japan, and so he's a very funny guy. And then you have Tai Chi, and then you have El Desperado, and then you have me, and you have Davey Boy Smith Jr., my partner in Killer Elite Squad KES, and then you also have Izuka, and Izuka is he's a crazy character, crazy monster style character. So it's a lot of different personalities, and it's a lot of fun. And Shelton Benjamin, who's been a part of Shelton X Benjamin, who's very famous from WWE, and then he learned to become even new and better fighter in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So it's really fun making those new friends and seeing the different personalities.
And how it was to be only like two Americans with like five Japanese guys. How was the relationship? How do you understand in the first time?
You mean for the language?
Yes.
Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you have to watch and hope that you understand what they are doing, even though you can talk to each other.
Other question: how is your relationship with Davey, and how did it was born Killer Elite Squad? How did it start?
Yeah. He and I have a very good relationship. We're very good friends. Very different style person. He obviously is the son of the British Bulldog, and he has been around professional wrestling his entire life, and he is very good, like MMA fighter. He trains very much in MMA. I am more laid back kind of guy. I like to ride motorcycles and I like to relax, but I also enjoy my gym time and becoming the character that is the American Psycho. Killer Elite Squad was born when I was already in New Japan Pro Wrestling for almost 1 year. And then New Japan Pro Wrestling said, Smith is coming to the company and we want you guys to be tag team. And I said, okay, good. We know each other before in WWE. We have some matches. We fight each other in WWE, but we don't know each other as like friends. And then, when he comes to New Japan, Davey Boy Smith and I together came up with the name Killer Elite Squad, and then everything we do after is like our finish move is called the Killer Bomb, and we have other tag team move called the Killer Cutter and different things like this. So we try to make everything about the team. We know that if the team is good, then people will remember Davey Boy Smith Jr. and they will remember the American Psycho Lance Archer, and together as a team, we will make ourselves, I guess, more famous as each person.
So tell me, Lance, how does this American Psycho character born? It was something that you have planned, or?
Yeah, well, it was an opportunity. The first time I was called the American Psycho was on ECW. Matt Stryker said this name on ECW, but WWE did not want that to be my nickname. But when I decided to go on after WWE, I wanted to continue to use this name. So when I first started with New Japan in 2011, I talked to New Japan office and I say, well, Lance Archer's the name I will use. And they said, okay, good. And I said, but I want to be called the American Psycho Lance Archer. And they said, oh, that is great. So I just think of myself as crazy monster, and every time I go into the ring, my entrance, I come out to the ring and I spit water to everybody in the crowd, and I get in the ring and I act very crazy, and when I have my matches, it's very strong style, very stiff, very more of a fight. Not I don't do a lot of pretty moves, but everything I do is very big and very hard and very strong, and so that's my mind is always thinking, what would the American Psycho do? You know, how strong would he be? How crazy would he be? How much uh, I don't know, how scary can the American Psycho be? That's what I think of when I wrestle, and it's been a lot of fun.
So tell me, what's the difference between the American Psycho that we see on the rings and Lance Harker on the real life? You know, on his free time.
Yeah, at home I'm a very relaxed guy. I enjoy watching movies. I like to, if I have a motorcycle, I really like to ride my motorcycle. I really like, going to the gym and just working on myself. And, my family is very close, and, I spend time with my sister and her children. She has three young girls, 6 years old, 4.5 years old, 2.5 years old, and soon she will have boy in July. So I really enjoy spending time with my family and doing those things. So the real life Lance Hoyt is very relaxed. The American Psycho Lance Archer is extremely crazy.
Yeah. So at this moment in New Japan, would you like to see any personality of the wrestling world joining to the Suzuki Gun, or you think you are all right, just how you are?
Right now, I just want the American Psycho to return to Suzuki-gun. Other guys, I don't know. Most recent is Zack Sabre Jr., who was
Yeah.
at Pro Wrestling Noah when I was at Noah, but then he left Noah and became really big independent star. And now he's at New Japan Pro Wrestling, and he's with Suzuki-gun. So he's the newest guy that's a part of the group. But for me, I just want to return.
Excellent. So tell me, talking about the Noah, how it was to return to the New Japan after 2 years. You went in Noah, so and you had a great receivement. You had a great welcome. So
Mhm.
how did you feel about that?
I'm very happy. I mean, 2 years at Noah, our time in Noah was very good. Very strong. Davey Boy Smith Jr. and I are two-time GHC, that's Global Honored Crown, tag team champions. The first time we were tag team champions, it was for 1 year and a half, and the most title defenses in history of GHC tag titles. So it was a very good time for us in Pro Wrestling Noah. But returning to New Japan was very exciting and very cool. And the first night after the Tokyo Dome, the people went crazy when we returned. Unfortunately for me, it was, as I say, bittersweet, because it was very good and very enjoyable returning. But that first tour back with New Japan is when I received my injury, and I have not been back since. So for me, it was great returning to New Japan, but it was a very short time. So that's why I'm working very hard now to return again.
That's cool. So tell me, if you could add any wrestler or any manager of all around the world to the Suzuki Gun, who could it be?
A manager?
A manager or a wrestler?
I don't know wrestler right now. We have many good wrestlers, so I don't know if there needs to be another wrestler. But manager, man, you know, Paul Heyman would be great manager for Suzuki Gun, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, his make skills. You think it's what Suzuki Gun needs to go to the top?
In the U.S. market, maybe yes, that would be great. Like somebody like this. If he cannot speak Japanese, maybe not the same in Japan.
Yeah. So tell me, talking about this, you have uh, you have been in the two countries, in Japan, in United States. So tell
Mhm,
me, is the language a barrier for the wrestler, for the actual wrestler?
mhm. Is it?
So
Is it? What's
is
the
it
question? I'm sorry.
uh, the question is, you think the language is one of the main obstacles that a wrestler have to go on?
Oh, I don't think so. I think professional wrestling is kind of its own language. And good professional wrestlers, I think, can always wrestle another good professional wrestler from anywhere in the world, and usually it's okay. Um, I have fought many guys who spoke almost no English and still had good wrestling matches. I've been to Puerto Rico, I've been to Mexico, I've been to different places in Europe. Even though in many places in Europe it is English, but it's a very different style of English. And because professional wrestling has its own language and its own abilities, it sometimes I think that helps make it easy. You don't necessarily have to have conversation to have good wrestling match. If you are two good wrestlers, whether you're a Japanese or you're American or you're European or you're Mexican or you're from wherever, I think this has its own language and it makes it more easy than if just talking.
And talking about language, what is your opinion about a guy like Dragon Lee making a promo in Spanish?
What about Dragon Lee in Spanish?
Yeah, making his promo in Spanish.
Oh, at New Japan?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's great. I think this is good and necessary for New Japan to be more worldwide company, because if Dragon Lee is having Spanish promo and there are Spanish speaking fans, then he becomes favorite for these Spanish speaking fans because they can understand him, they can relate. Same for when I say my promos in Japan on New Japan Pro Wrestling or Pro Wrestling Noah, it's always in English because I'm speaking for English listeners and for Japanese fans who are listening. If they cannot understand, it makes them actually more interesting or more scary or very different than other wrestlers. They can listen to Japanese promo, but if they listen to me and I'm half scary character, maybe it makes me more scary because they cannot understand me. But for the American fans or the English speaking fans, they can understand me and maybe they like what I say. Same for Dragon Lee. If he cuts a Spanish promo, now he's speaking to Spanish speaking fans, and I think that's very good.
And what are your like? What do you want to reach with the Killer Elite Squad and Suzuki-gun?
For me, I think I definitely with Killer Elite Squad would like to return and recapture the IWGP Tag Team Champion. I hope in the future that I and also maybe Davey have opportunity to become a singles wrestler star. If we can, become, I want to become IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Now there is new IWGP U.S. champion. There are many different single titles that I think there could be good opportunities for both Davey Boy Smith and myself as single stars. But for Killer Elite Squad, I hope that we can come back and become tag champions once again.
So tell me, Lance, do you have any dream match that you like to have, talking about with David or in a solo career?
I think my dream match is to be for heavyweight championship, IWGP heavyweight championship at the Tokyo Dome for Wrestle Kingdom. That is number one dream match.
Okay, and you have any tag team in the world or any wrestler in the world that you like to fight with?
Oh man, there's so many. I cannot say just one person or one team. I think it would, especially now with New Japan's relationship with Ring of Honor, there are some very good tag teams I would love to have tag team matches against. Killer Elite Squad, we've already had many matches against War Machine, and now War Machine is the IWGP Tag Team Champion. So they're hopefully that they will keep titles and we can beat them and take our titles back in the future. But also Ring of Honor has some good tag teams with the Briscoe brothers. We would love to fight. Obviously, the Young Bucks, who have become very famous, but very different style of wrestlers. I know right now Christopher Daniels is the heavyweight champion the world champion for Ring of Honor. But him and Frankie Kazarian have always had very good tag team, and they are old school friends of mine from TNA. So that would be a fun match, against Christopher Daniels and Frankie Kazarian. So those are some good matches that maybe I would like to see KES have.
Perfect. So, to finish this interview, could you send
a shout
could you
out
send, yeah,
for
could you send
the for the Latin fans and the people who follow wrestling sports.
Hmm. Okay. Just want to say this is the American Psycho, Lance Archer, and you need to take. I don't know what the. I don't know what you want me to say.
I don't know, maybe use un saludo.
Okay, this is the American Psycho, Lance Archer. Saludo. Listen up. Escucha.
excellent. Lance, thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much for your time. We know you're a busy man, so thank you so much for joining in this interview, and hope we hope you have an excellent career and you reach every objective you have.
And a
Okay,
good
thank.
recovery. I
Okay,
hope that we will see you wrestling again.
yeah, muchas gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye bye.